The avoidant moves through breakup recovery with the precision of someone following an internal script they have performed dozens of times before. Each stage feels spontaneous to them, feels like genuine emotional processing, but it is actually a choreographed defense sequence designed to protect them from the vulnerability of grief. They will pass through all 4 stages believing they are healing, never recognizing they are simply reinforcing the exact patterns that made intimacy impossible in the first place. Stage 1. Immediate relief mistaken for vindication. The first stage arrives the moment the relationship officially ends. A flooding sense of relief so overwhelming the avoidant interprets it as confirmation they made the right decision. The pressure of meeting someone else's emotional needs evaporates. The anxiety of sustained intimacy disappears. The constant internal monitoring of how much closeness to allow before retreating stops consuming their nervous system. This relief is real, physiologically tangible, and the avoidant mistakes it for evidence that the relationship was wrong, rather than evidence that their attachment style makes all relationships feel like suffocation. They experience freedom from obligation and interpret it as freedom gained, never recognizing it as freedom from the discomfort of growth. This stage can last days or weeks, characterized by a lightness that feels like healing, but is actually just the absence of the specific anxiety intimate connection generates in their nervous system. Subscribe to understand the psychology of patterns people repeat without ever recognizing the repetition. Stage 2. Compulsive distraction, masquerading as self-improvement. The second stage is frantic activity designed to fill every space where grief might enter. The avoidant throws themselves into work with renewed intensity, starts new hobbies, reconnects with friendships that atrophied during the relationship, constructs a social calendar so packed that stillness becomes impossible. They frame this as reclaiming the life they lost to the relationship, as rediscovering themselves, as productive healing. What they are actually doing is outrunning the emotional reckoning that occurs when the nervous system stops being flooded with novelty and settles into the reality of permanent loss. The distraction is not evidence of moving on. It is evidence of refusing to process. They will describe feeling better, feeling more themselves, never acknowledging that the self they are returning to is the one incapable of sustaining intimate connection. Stage 3. Selective nostalgia that edits out their own culpability. The third stage emerges weeks or months after the breakup, when the relief has faded and the distraction has lost its anesthetic effect. The avoidant begins remembering the relationship, but the memories arrive pre-edited, soft-focused, stripped of the moments where their withdrawal caused pain, cleansed of their own emotional unavailability. They remember laughter, but not the silence that followed it. They remember closeness, but not the cold distance they created immediately after. They remember the person's patience, but not what that patience was required to endure. This nostalgia is not longing for the actual relationship. It is longing for a version of the relationship that never existed, one where they were more present than they actually were. This stage can trigger the impulse to reach out, to reconnect, not because they have changed, but because they have successfully rewritten history in a way that absolves them of responsibility for the ending. Stage 4. Resignation disguised as acceptance. The final stage is a settlement into the narrative that this is simply who they are, someone for whom long-term intimacy does not work, whose independence is non-negotiable, whose solitude is preference rather than defense. They stop questioning their patterns and start building an identity around them. The avoidant in this stage presents as healed, at peace with being alone, comfortable in their self-sufficiency. What they have actually done is calcified their attachment wounds into permanent personality, mistaking the absence of active longing for the presence of contentment. They are not at peace. They are resigned, and resignation feels close enough to acceptance that they stop looking for the difference. These 4 stages do not lead to transformation. They lead directly back to the beginning, preparing the avoidant to repeat the exact cycle with the next person who tries to love them.